Thanks for being with us another Tuesday. If possible, you don't have to be, but we always invite people to turn their cameras on if they can and be present. It's always fun to see more faces, get some interaction. Oh, people pop on.
Hello. If I'm on camera, you could be on camera with my red face, guys.
Whenever we're on meetings with our corporate team and stuff, our president, Nick Johnson, he always does that. He always invites people to turn their cameras on and be fully present. And one of our mentors, Jim Dethmer, the author of 15 Commandments of Conscious Leadership, he said that one of the first principles of presence is attention. We can't split attention. So it's although people like I know that we've got I'm looking at numbers. I think we're a little bit more numbers on women. Women, I'm going to tell you something that you might not agree with me, but you're not any better at multitasking than us men. We just don't claim to be.
I'm terrible at multitasking. In fact, I'm trying to send out text reminders to my clients right now.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I know you said
Jared,
but I'm not sure.
I think what you meant is we're not any better at multi-presencing. We are excellent multitaskers. That is not the same thing as
Okay, that is true. I correct myself. Women are great multitaskers, horrible at being present.
Yes,
That's human.
that is, we're all, yes, that is true.
Okay, that is a great correction there.
I was going to say, we have 5 kids. We can multitask that all day, but our brain doesn't keep up with other stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So tonight we're talking about healthy relationships tonight. We talk about healthy body, healthy mind, healthy finances. All of those things play into our healthy relationships. But we're going to talk about some specific things around relationships and that have helped us over the years. And we're just like most normal people. We've had some rocky times.
We've been married, what, 21 years?
21 years, 21 and a half now. So we've had some good, we've had some bad, we've had some ugly. And
today, this is the ugly today.
no, that's not
the red sunburned face.
But one of the things that about sometimes people think that if we're not fighting, if we're not disagreeing or arguing or have different perspectives, they think that if they're not one in all things, thought, actions, whatever, that it's not a good relationship. We would argue the opposite. If you are always seeing eye to eye, then people are covering things up.
Yeah, or someone's not being honest.
Yeah, someone's not being honest. We're just, human beings do not see things from the same perspectives all the time. And so communication is so critical. And years ago, one of our mentors, she said this, she asked us what communication is. And everybody's like, oh, well, there's different kinds of communication. There's verbal, there's body language, there's tone, all these things. And she said, I want to submit a different definition. Communication is the result you get. And we're like, oh man, we suck at communication.
It's easy to blame somebody else, right? It's like, you didn't listen. You didn't hear me what I was saying. Well,
no, I heard everything you said, but can you repeat it all over again?
Because I wasn't listening.
Because I wasn't listening.
Like a movie. No, that's a good quote. So yeah, if communication is the result that you get, then it makes you look at everything a little bit differently. Like if your kids didn't, follow through on their chores, or if, somebody didn't do something how you explained it, or someone misread something that you said, then you can take, some ownership on both sides of that. Instead of just saying it's all on you, you didn't listen. It can be partly on me where I didn't communicate effectively in a way that you could hear.
Yeah, so one of the things that, how many of you, like, put it in the chat, if you've ever had a patterned argument.
Pattern argument, what do you mean by that?
Something that it's whenever you fight, you always go to a certain subject. It always comes back around.
It's like some sort of fight.
Yeah, it's like a fight. Yeah, that's good. The rules of Fight Club are you don't talk about Fight Club, right?
And it could be with someone, it doesn't have to be your spouse, right?
Yeah.
You can have, like we said, relationship edition. And some people thought, oh, that means my spouse. But you have relationships with all kinds of people,
Yeah.
right? With your parents, with your children, with neighbors, with whoever. There's a lot of different relationships you can look at here. You don't have to necessarily be married.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna, last week we talked about decision. And several years ago, it's been about 6 years ago now, we were working with a coach. He helped us with business. He helped us with our marriage. He helped us with life. His name's Dave Blanchard. He's the president of the Augmandino Group. Amazing mentor. And in our first Zoom meeting with him, Amber asked a really important question. And we had been learning lots of principles, and sometimes we feel like, or we felt like this anyway, put a comment in the chat or something if this sounds similar to you, where you start to work on something and it's like, man, this is making it worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've definitely had that before.
Right? Because when you clean your closet out, it gets dirtier before it gets cleaner. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to unpack stuff and you have to decide, oh, hey, is this worth keeping?
And the dust goes everywhere,
Yeah.
and everyone's sneezing. And
Yeah. So sometimes when you're unpacking and you're trying to clean out those boxes and you're trying to create the life that you want, some things come out, but we're gonna talk about how to deal with those things that come out. But Amber asked this question, or she actually made this statement to Dave. She said, he asked us, how can I serve you, and what is it that I can help facilitate for you guys? And Amber said, we need language. Okay? So language is so critical. John Dewey one time said that thought without words is impossible.
that's deep.
That's deep, right? I thought about that for like a month after I read it. Thought without words is impossible.
What about pictures?
You still have words.
Okay.
You attach words to it. You tell yourself a story. You start talking about it and stuff. So, so it's really important that you learn the right words to be able to articulate what it is that you want to.
I'm going to bring you back to your previous thoughts.
Yeah.
You didn't finish it. Patterned fights.
Yeah, pattern fights.
Okay. So have you guys ever had a pattern fight before? Or like a fight loop? A lot of you put in the chat that you have. I know that we had over the years. And, or even like a discussion that you know is going to lead to a fight or tension or something. And you maybe in the past, I know we've done this, where you just try to like avoid it altogether. Like, don't even talk about that.
Unless you want to make the other person mad, and then you say, hey, I want to talk about this.
So I guess it depends on your goals, right? If your goal is, yeah, that's a good point. So we've had a lot of these over the years. In-laws, you know, we tend to fight over in-laws. His family, not mine. No, just kidding. Mine might have some too. What's another one?
Her family is crazy.
Yeah, only like half.
So is mine though.
Yeah, all of yours is, only half of mine. So what's something else? What's something else that we've thought about? Oh, previous business partners. That was a big one. You don't even bring that up, right? You don't even go there.
Right, Laura, poking the bear.
That's right. So there's a lot of different things like that. And, we personally felt like, man, wouldn't it be nice if we could actually have some of these conversations and not have it to be a fight? Or when you get bugged by the same things over and over again and you get triggered like, oh my goodness, it's happening again. I am in Groundhog's Day right now. Like he or I or whoever is doing the same thing. And you feel yourself like going into the rut. Okay. And you might do this. You might be able to relate to this with food too, right? You get into a situation. Maybe it's around your family and there's these same foods that your mom always makes at Christmas or whatever. And all of a sudden you pounded 5 sugar cookies and you were like, wait a minute, I forgot to tell you about my goals, right? So the same thing is true with your relationships.
Yep, absolutely. So we all have basic human needs. The 3 most basic human needs are security, approval, and control.
And this is from the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership book.
So security is like, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to feel secure, safe, that we have food, clothing, shelter, all those basic needs. Approval is the next tier up, and it's where relationships come into play. If any of you have ever been in child development classes or anything like that, they teach the levels of dependence. So an infant starts out completely dependent. And as they grow, they develop codependence, where they their identity is based on a relationship to someone else. In the last several years, the next 2 have kind of flip-flopped, where when I was going to school, it was dependence, codependence, interdependence, and then independence. And what they found was independence is not really healthy. Interdependence is the ultimate, where you are an independent being. And in a long-term relationship, it is critical to understand that she is an individual and I am an individual of infinite worth, separate. Okay, the other 2 human needs are oneness and separation. So how many of you, by raise of hands, have felt irritated at all by the fact that you are in the same general vicinity as a partner all day long, every single day for the last month? Yes, Jordan and Andrea. So here's a baby.
You see her.
Yes, and baby is raising her hand like, I can't stand being around my mom and dad. Yeah. Like, can you get these people out of here? So it's important that we feel a separation, that we miss each other in order to feel the oneness also, right? So I've heard, I follow some different people on podcasts and stuff, and an extreme example of this that I actually thought was kind of funny was the father goes to a job every single day. And since the quarantine, he's obviously been home, but he set up a separate office space that he could do his work and stuff. And there's this principle that a lot of people talk about that is you have to release or separate yourself from like the job, and so that you can accept the family. So he literally goes, they have a room in their house with an external entry. He goes out, walks around the neighborhood, comes back in the front door and greets his family. He did this because in the first couple of weeks of quarantine, he would walk through the door immediately into same house, and he was unloading on his family. So he just took a short space of time to release, and he's like, I don't know why it was. And then he realized that his release after work every single day, he had like a half an hour commute home. So he was able to unwind and not unload everything. There was a gap in time. So one thing that when you're working from home, and we have a lot of coaches on this call, this has to do with boundaries also. If you do work from home, it's really, really important to set up a designated workspace so that you have structure for the work that you're doing, and also so that if you have children or spouse or whatever, when you're in that space, that they know not to interrupt you in that space. And then you can set up times every half hour, 60 minutes, 90 minutes or whatever to go out of that space, even if it's at a kitchen table, to go out of that space and say, okay, now I'm available.
I like that. Okay, I'm gonna bring you back again, hun. Fight loops.
Okay,
I feel like we didn't close that loop.
we'll close it.
Okay, I'm just keeping you honest.
I know. Okay, so what are the struggles with those fight loops? Why do we just recycle?
Are you wanting people to come off mute?
Yeah, if they want to.
Okay, why do you have fight loops?
No resolution.
I think it has a lot to do with the level of vulnerability on that topic and the fear of having that conversation with somebody you're close to. And what if we don't agree? And if we don't agree, what does that mean about our relationship? And that goes back to my security, my approval, my attachment, those kinds of things.
Yeah. So Jen brings up attachment. The first principle of attachment theory is I see you. I recognize that you are an individual with a perspective, that you have a brain, that you're important to this world. And then the second principle is you're safe. I see you and you're safe.
Elaine brings up a good point though. She doesn't know I'm right yet.
I know, that's why we always fight, because she didn't recognize that I was right yet.
Because sometimes I think, arguments come up and you feel like your position is right or correct or whatever. And
there would be no fight if there wasn't a right and a wrong. Would there?
Or there's difference of opinion. But that person does think that they're right. Right?
Right.
Right?
Left. That's
Yes.
ego. Yeah.
So before we kind of give you a tool to help with this, we want to do a little exercise, okay? And this exercise is called fact versus story, okay? And this exercise is very helpful to do first before you learn the tool, okay? So fact versus story is an exercise that helps you realize that not everything that we think is true is true. It's possible that our mind has filled in some of the gaps in the spaces with a story that supports our thinking that what we think is true. And so when you peel fact versus story down to the very lowest common denominator, it helps you separate. What are the facts? So a fact is something that could be proven in a court of law. It's something that could be captured by a video camera or measured, and all the people in the world who measure it are going to come up with the same conclusion. Okay, so that would be something that would be considered a fact. A fact is not relative. It's not comparative. So let's give you some examples.
So if I were to say your face is red, that is not a fact.
You should first say fact.
Fact, your face is red. But that's not a fact. That's my story.
Compared to what?
Yeah.
It could be more red, or it could be less red. I don't know. It kind of looks pink. I'm a little bit more like tan here. It's comparative, right? So fact would be Amber has a face. Story, Amber's face is kind of red. And someone private messaged me, I like this. So remember when I got a chemical peel, my face was green, but I flew to an event? I'm reminded of that right now. Did you get some sort of facial today?
Yes, she did.
So this is a good example. So fact, Amber has a face. Story is that Amber got some sort of chemical peel or facial, and that's like when she came to an event with a green face. I do remember the green
That was
face.
awesome.
That was fun. I won't say who it is. So you can see there's fact and then there's the story. Sometimes our stories like will be the same and people will agree on the story. There's 67, a lot of couples on here. There could be 100 people on this Zoom and probably like 97 of them would be like, yeah, Amber's face is red.
And here's an important point about when the world shows up that way. There's a difference between thankfulness and appreciation. Thankfulness is the world showed up the way that we think it should be, and we are thankful.
It's sunshine outside and Amber likes sunshine.
And that's how the world
It
should be.
sunshine.
I'm thankful. Appreciative is the world shows up however it shows up. It might not be the way that we think it ought to be, and we appreciate it. We can roll with it. We're not like, oh my gosh, I'm a victim today because the sunshine's not out. So when you can start to appreciate, when you can listen to people that you're in relationship with and appreciate their perspective. And one of our favorite responses is, oh, that's so interesting. But hopefully you're saying that sincerely, that it's actually interesting to you. So it's important that I'm appreciative of the appreciative people in my life. I love that.
That's a good one, Lexi. Okay, so fact versus story. Let's do a couple more so they get it. Okay. Fact. Jared has eyes. Okay. Story. Jared has pretty blue eyes. You do one.
That's definitely her story. Fact. Amber has hair. Story. It is probably not her natural color, and she's afraid of looking older because she's got a few gray stragglers.
That is a story I agree with. Okay, so let's do an example of within a fight. Okay, what's our most recent fight?
Man, I can't remember. Can you?
I mean, I could remember one, but I don't remember if it's our most recent. So, okay, I got one. So we had this like fight over the height of the volleyball net.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
It was like I said the height was this height and he said the height was this height for women's. And really I just asked him to adjust it to the height that I wanted, whether or not that was the actual height of women's volleyball or not. And we had a big fight over it. Yeah, cat private message. That was the one she was gonna say. Okay, so there was fact. The fact was Amber sent text to Jared asking to adjust net. He was inside, I was outside. I don't know how to work the thing. And even if I did, it's hard, okay?
It is hard.
You have to have like some special like skills and like grip strength, okay? So fact, Amber text Jared, come adjust net height. Story, Jared was a big fat jerk because he came out and made a big scene about how I wanted to play volleyball at a lower height net, and I was obviously not a good volleyball player if I wanted it at that height.
Okay. So fact, I had adjusted. Story, I had measured it to 7'4" and a quarter, which is women's height net. Men's height net is 7'11" and 5'8".
Yeah, I don't even know these things.
Stupid how they measure them and stuff. But I had measured it, but it wasn't where she normally just reaches and touches and stuff. So what's right? Who cares?
Exactly.
Just put it to what she wanted to play on. I wasn't even playing.
Yes. Okay, so here's the tool. You guys ready for the tool? Okay, so the tool is number 1, realize that your story is not fact. This is difficult sometimes because we are very convincing to ourselves that our story is for sure fact and for sure right. Okay, so whenever you start feeling like I'm right, you're wrong, that can be your cue to be like, okay, what's the facts versus what's the story that I'm making up here? And so, I remember one. We were playing volleyball like 2 weeks ago, like with our
Always
kids.
around volleyball.
I know. We've gone to
Jeez.
therapy over volleyball. We went to volleyball therapy, and now we can be partners in outdoor tournaments. But it's cost us a lot of money. So, so Jared, in my opinion, the fact was Jared said less words than normal. I guess that's not a fact because that's comparative. Jared said 3 words total. Okay, story, Jared's mad about something. He's upset that the ball went off Tinley's arm and hit him in the face and broke his glasses, and he's just like upset about all of this. Okay, and so this is what we tend to do, or this is what I used to do a lot, is I would be mad that he was mad. And I wouldn't tell him, I wouldn't share this with him, that my story was that he was mad and I was just going to be mad to punish him and not talk to him and kind of like stomp around and like say short answers when he asks me stuff. Okay. So step 1 is to realize that you have a story going on. So I did this actually. I was like, okay, my story is that he's mad and he's upset and he's like taking it on all of us.
So this is a recipe for a story war. Okay. This is a recipe for.
I was actually just giving the resolution one, but we can do that one.
But well, let's go through the whole thing. So this is the death spiral of a relationship. That we have stories. That is true. All of us, we have stories. We don't only function on facts.
Mm-hmm.
We make up all these stories. 2, that we withhold that story. That we try to make it about facts, and like you did this and that's a fact and all this stuff, and you and then you or you withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
People withdraw in different ways. They withdraw their affection, or they withdraw their presence, or they withdraw words, whatever it is. So you withdraw, and then the 4th one is you project your story onto them.
Mm-hmm. So that's the relationship death spiral formula. So make sure you write that down. And for all your relationships, you want to die and spiral into death. Okay. All right. So what if you want your relationship to actually move forward and get better? So let's talk about that formula. Okay. So the first step, I already said it. Realize that it's a story that you're holding. Okay. Second, reveal to the other person. So this is what I did last week before. All the days run together for me, right? I said, okay, Jared.
This is important that you use this language.
Or something like unto it.
It changes everything.
Okay, I said, Jared, I noticed that it feels weird between us. And I have a story that you're mad about volleyball when you got hit in the face and your glasses broke, and that you were angry and that you were mad at all of us. That was my story. So there it is.
My response, thank you for sharing your story with me. my story was, I share my story, and then we can get through all the clutter of the stories, and it lightens the situation drastically, because now you're talking just like, oh, I'm telling you about this movie I saw, right? It like removes it from you and like the emotional center of your body. One of the keys of processing emotion is to be able to hold it more lightly. Emotion will not kill us.
Well, my goal was to connect,
Yeah.
right? My goal wasn't that I had to be right, that he was actually angry and mad. And my goal was to connect. And I was like, okay, I don't like the weirdness between us. I want to connect. And so I shared that story and he was like, oh, interesting. No, I was actually like, my head just hurt because I got hit in the face with a ball. Like he wasn't really upset with everybody.
I couldn't see straight.
Yeah. So after we both just shared our stories, yeah, like Kat said in the chat, it's story wars, right? We don't have to war our stories. We could just share them and reveal with that intention of connecting. Now, it doesn't work when it's like, my story is that you're a big fat jerk and that I'm right. That's not the same thing. It's when your intention is really to connect and move forward and to just share what was on your heart, because your thought, your story, it's not wrong that you had a story, okay? Some people are like, I just need to stop the stories. You're never gonna stop the stories, you guys. Your brain has to fill in the gaps of what's going on. It actually is quite helpful for you. Keep you alive and safe and not wandering into dark alleys with machine gun, guys.
And we live in Mapleton, Utah. Not a lot of those areas around here.
You know what? It could happen.
It could happen.
So, okay.
So one of the important things about these, about the loops that we get into is a lot of people are more accepting today about things like trauma, right? It's still hard for people to deal with, but so many more people are like, oh, I've got to deal with this trauma. There's a lot of research. There's 2 doctors in the mid-90s that came out with this hypothesis that people who struggle with PTSD, that there's also something called post-traumatic growth that is just as powerful, that people can actually grow exponentially from the trauma they went through. However, in the Habits of Health, we talk a lot about inflammation, okay? When we're overweight and our blood sugars are all over the place, and our insulin is all over the place. Insulin is the hormone that tells our body how to manage energy. But insulin is also an inflammatory hormone. So when we sprain an ankle or get injured, we get inflammation in that area, and all of the white blood cells in our body go and attack that spot to heal it. But when you're dealing with chronic inflammation from unhealthy habits, the body doesn't attack it to heal it the same way. It says, oh, this is a chronic thing. It's a slow drip. I'm not going to do my job, which chronic inflammation causes a lot of long-term physical ailments, disease, and so forth.
Well, that can come from stress. If you're fighting every day, if you have a relationship where you're constantly fighting every single day, you're going to see some of this chronic inflammation in your body from that. So
that's my point, that what they found is that this chronic trauma can actually be more damaging because it shuts us off even more so. We stop even wanting to try. So it's so critical that we understand these tools of fact versus story so we can start using different language to be able to process those emotions, the events in our lives, and be able to move forward. Now, we've talked a couple weeks ago about the drama triangle versus the empowerment triangle. No matter where you are in the drama triangle, victim, villain, or hero, the first shift to the empowerment triangle is to creator. So when we feel that angst, like, oh man, I'm just in the same loop again, one of the best initial questions that you can ask yourself and your partner is, what do we want to create? What do we want our relationship to look like? What do we want our relationship to feel like? And then work from there, knowing that, hey, these are the steps. In order to get a body healthy, we know that we need to eat good food, that we need to move our bodies, that we need sleep, that we need to de-stress. Same things go for a healthy relationship. Oh, anybody on here could give you a recipe for a good relationship. Oh, you pay compliments to your spouse. You're kind to them. You don't yell at them. You don't beat them, right?
I only beat you a little.
No.
Like it, Monopoly.
Ruthless.
Ruthless. I am. Oh, and yeah, volleyball, that depends. Joe's pretty good. So thanks so much, you guys, for joining us. We hope you've gotten some value tonight in our Healthy Hangout Relationship Edition. We just love coming together with you guys. And, you know, it's good to work on our healthy mindset. It's good to work on our relationships, no matter the ones we want to keep. Just like the quote, only brush the teeth you want to keep, right? So really becoming intentional and going to that creator place with our relationships is so key and so helpful. So thanks for joining
I'll
us.
close with this. Have big dreams for your relationships. The quality of our life is largely dependent and determined by the quality of our relationships. So have big dreams for them. One of our friends in Optavia, he shared this last weekend, and this goes for anybody who may be struggling with a spouse or a partner that you're working towards things and you feel like they're fighting against you when you're working hard, right? He said, if anybody can talk you out of your dream, and this includes you, because sometimes we talk ourselves out of our own dreams. If anybody can talk you out of your dream, you don't have a dream. Human beings need dreams. Dream about what you want your relationships to look like. Alex Trebek, he followed that up with this. Alex Trebek made this comment. He said, don't tell me what you believe in. I'll observe how you behave and I will make my own determination.
That's good.
Don't get in the fights over and over about what your partner believes in or doesn't believe in and stuff. Just observe each other and say, I don't want to fight about this. It is what it is. You cannot change the past.
What?
You can't. If trauma happened, it's going to stay there forever. It will always be there. You cannot remove it from your life. But what you can decide is where you want today to go and where you want your future to go. So dream big about your relationships with yourself and with other people, and start to set the structure in your day to be able to work on little things. One healthy habit at a time is our motto. Work on one healthy relationship habit at a time to be able to help you create what you want your life to look like and feel like.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you guys. Thanks for joining us. Have a fabulous Tuesday. See you next week.